Hola, hola. I'm Trek with two Ks,
And I am 3D, and welcome to Metaverses the Other Side.
brought to you here on the Gentlemen of Crypto Network. Just a heads up, this episode is before we had the idea of bringing the Twitter spaces to the Gentlemen of Crypto Network. And so that's why we're talking about the stuff that we're talking about in this episode.
Hola, hola, buenos dias, buenas noches, buenas tardes, and all the other greetings. I'm Trek with two Ks. My co-host is
3D.
3D. There we go. And this is another episode of Metaverses the Other Side. In tonight's episode, we are getting into a documentary that I wish we would have found earlier when we were doing the reviews of metaverse movie, TV shows, and that kind of content, and like seeing how things were either on or off as far as the whole metaversal thing. But I did not find it until, well, funny enough, I saw it on the app thing that I look at, but I never thought to actually look at it until I think it was like a couple of weeks after we had did the final movie thing that we were reviewing. And so I instantly hit 3D up when I seen it, because I actually looked at it and was like, holy crap, somebody actually made an entire documentary or filmed an entire documentary inside virtual reality space called VR Chat. And the gentleman's name is, what is it? Joe. Damn, I'm not downstairs by the computer. What am I saying? Anywho, it came out in the early part of 2021, which was the early, beginning of C19. And we all know how the world, governments, and people kind of reacted to that. Folks having to deal with being stationary inside their homes. And so things like VR chat just totally took off. Things like Oculus totally took off. Things like virtual spaces, metaversal spaces, online gaming, online community building just totally took off during that period. And someone was actually smart enough. Shout outs to, I'm trying to remember what Joe's handle is. But he was actually smart enough to go out and document the communities that were built and the relationships that were fostered during this time. And it isn't a super complicated documentary, but it is just interesting to watch and listen to the people explain how VR chat, the virtual spaces, the ability to still find ways to connect with people was very monumental in their life, especially considering what was going on at the time. That's at least my take on it right now. 3D, I'm gonna let you jump in on the rest for a minute. I'm in the midst of doing something.
One thing I did like about this movie is they did it in that classic style that we saw in the mid and late 90s, where the people running the documentary don't say a damn thing, and they don't have to have a host. They don't have to do anything. I think they actually do say stuff here and there, as if someone's behind the camera and stuff. And I just love the style of setup, the way they do it. It's a common documentary thing where they do the two different angles where they run two different storylines basically at the same time. And I cried all the way through this movie. I'm not gonna lie. One of the segments in here is about depression. I've been dealing with chronic depression for depression for 25 years, chronic depression for 21 years, and diagnosed and everything. And so a lot of this, I mean, clearly there's people out there connecting in these methods and everything. And when I was hearing some of these people talk about the lady crafted a new model for the person just so they could have a dress on. They didn't make a dress and then put it on the model or anything. She made an entirely new model to have the dress incorporated. So they get these unique gifts out of these major events that they're doing in these things. And we to be honest, I didn't even consider that setup or that thing or anything like that until they were talking about that lady in her dress. And I was just there's a bunch of moments in here. Being someone, I am in some of these communities, I don't use VR chat specifically. I was a big person. I don't use it anymore, but Voo, I think was what it was called, or Voo 2 or something like that. And I was in some of the other ones, and so it was really I do remember when people got married in Second Life, and people thought, "Oh, that's just crazy. It's all for clicks." And then these people had got married, and it's did anyone even hear about this? This just happened. Did anybody ever hear about this? Probably not. And letting the people just tell their story. There's no bias. The only bias you get is from the actual people. And then I don't know, like when I started using avatars, because I have fun with my face blowing up. And at first it was just to show someone how to do it. Then it became, hey, this could be really useful for me. Now it's to a point where like I'm testing different programs to find one that works light enough so I can like stream playing games with a virtual character, and seeing that there's people taking this to the utmost extreme. Like they got like various other forms of like body mapping, so they can do dancing and all these other things. And I can only imagine some of the steps people have to do. Like some of the things they were doing in here, I can actually remember back in early ages of long ago, people with cell phones, like early Android phone mobile users, would have an app where they could reenact scenes in faux VR, cardboard, Google Cardboard is what it's called. You put it on and you get a fake virtual reality. And they would be like, okay, is this stretch that I'm about to walk on like 12 feet long? Why? Because it's a 12-foot walk. I got to walk 12 feet for this thing so I can watch this thing. I got to make sure I don't run into anything. And so I can only imagine some steps some of these people have to have. And like one point, this lady talks about when she first started getting into it, like she ran into her wall or something. And how to keep going. And it was the whole, like, you get that taste of professionalism outside of the professional world, because not in a manner of wanting to be professional, but in a manner of just, you're in the moment and you don't under. It's like if you ever been going to a punk show or probably a lot of smaller like venue type stuff, like there'd be people out in the pit, be people out on the banger bar, and then someone will get hit or something. Like I've seen people get poked with spike bracelets and stuff, and they'd be bleeding, but not like pouring out blood, but they'd get poked enough to be bleeding. Or someone would just be walking out after a show and they have a big cut on their head or something. Like, what happens? Like, I'm not entirely too sure. Didn't even know I was bleeding. I didn't know I had a cut. And it's like seeing that here though, like, but in a very professionalized way. It was just crazy. And then it's like the expressions you get from this, you realize the metaversal space, there really are use cases for it. There really are reasons for it to exist. And I think because some of the stuff gets so hyped, and then people, it gets dogged on. Like I've done it before, where like something will get hyped real big, and I'll actually stop using stuff. It's like, oh, well, everybody's on it now. And that momentum, it makes us forget what actual use it can really have. Like there's a couple in 2 different countries, dating and stuff. Like, yeah, sure, that's not anything new to be heard of anymore. Like I met I dated my first girlfriend online and over the phone. She lived in New York. I lived in Oklahoma. And then I actually met my wife online. Like we met on mindyourbook.com. She sent me a bandana that I actually owned as a gift on that website. So it's like, so this stuff isn't new, but at the same time, like they're taking it to the extreme. Like I can't say with my wife, yeah, you remember that time we got married in VR chat? Yeah, let's go look at the pictures. Let's go look at the video. Let's go look at the remembrance. Let's go look at, like, there are things you can do. Like you can do shadow play or shadow record or something like that. And it's like you can actually have your GPU record what's being basically what you're seeing. So that it can record everything that you're actually doing live while you're doing that. And it can get down to a point to where like they have machines now that can allow you to do more than just talking. You can actually do more actions now. You can feel things. You can actually perform actions. I'm not trying to say it, but I bet you get what I'm saying. And then like you have people are forgetting, like there are tons of people out there that have workout equipment. Workout buddy. Now you got a workout buddy. Road trip, come on in.
Yeah, so it's funny, the thing that you're talking about with like the feeling stuff, like one of the early scenes, and also like, I'm kind of put it in context for folks who are kind of like, well, how do you do a VR chat in, not a VR, but like a movie documentary in the VR chat, and it's basically just screen capture. There is X amount of editing because he's going into different community groups. So I would imagine he was probably capturing the image off of his Oculus system or what other like kind of camera system.
Capture card.
Capture card. There we go. Thank you. To get the stuff that was going on inside the VR chat. But he was going to different meeting groups and different clubs and stuff like that. And it was like there's a scene in the beginning where when they go into the portal thing, after everybody like gathers in the meeting room, in that stage room, and then they go in, and then it's like some roadside place. And I think they were going to do a race or something like that. And the guy's like trying to close the door, and he's like, yeah, I'm trying to reach to the door. But like, it wouldn't work the first couple of times. He tried to like reach out with his avatar hand. Eventually they figured this stuff out. But like, even
the thing of driving, like he makes the joke of like, well, I don't really know how to drive in real life. I don't even have a license, so I guess we're gonna see how this goes. When I first heard that, I was cracking up. I was like, man, like imagine that though. Like if you don't know how to drive in real world, like how close or far are you in understanding it in a virtual world? That's a whole nother thing, and going down to like the mechanics or whatever. But it was still just like I said, when I saw it, I was like, damn, I wish we would have found this earlier. And I threw the idea out to 3D. Like, yo, we got to talk about this joint. Side note, a couple of things. One is shout outs to Joe Hunting. I believe I'm saying his name right. Hunting. Am I right on 3D? Is it Huntington or Hunt? Is it Hunting?
I don't remember.
All right.
Well, I tried it up.
First one.
Oh, this is the UK production too.
Yeah, so Hunting, I believe.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything on here. They got Cass.
I tagged him in the in the other post. It's not in the Spaces post, but I tagged him in the other post that I did.
Joe Hunting.
Joe Hunting. Okay, so shout outs to him for him having the idea to do this and then being able to like get the funding and everything to actually bring it to production. Other thing to note, need to knock out this housekeeping stuff. If you don't know, this is the Builder DAO Twitter Spaces, and this particular Spaces that we host is called Metaverses the Other Side. There are a couple of things that we have been working on within the Metaverse. First one being the Uplift, which is like a primary area of operation. We're also working on some other things that hopefully in the coming weeks and months we can start talking about it more. But some of the other projects that we have put together right now is the Metaversal Toolbox website, which is hosted on IPFS. What we're asking folks who are interested in, decentralized storage, being able to have access to open source tools, who are interested in no code, low code options, as far as being able to build these metaverses, build smart contracts, integrate these kind of things, start, NFT projects up and stuff like that. We have that on the site. It's a bunch of different things. Granted, as me and 3D were recently talking about, some of the things have been closed off or put behind a paywall by the originators of those projects that were either open source tools. So we are making adjustments as we notice when certain projects don't meet the requirement of what we put together to have them be on the site, which was being open source and primarily free. So we are updating the list. Things have changed, but we are asking folks, hey, if you're interested in decentralization as far as information and access and storage, if you have an IPFS or if you're using some other kind of decentralized storage platform, please do add the Metaversal Toolbox into your node. We would definitely greatly appreciate that help in getting out this kind of information and keeping access to these things open. The other thing to note is that these recordings are played again on the Gentleman of Crypto YouTube channel, which is on Fridays at 11 p.m. And so we get into like X amount of times it's tangent stuff, and then it's like kooky stuff, and we make jokes, and but we're doing the geek inside about this whole metaversal space as it is growing, as it is transforming, as it is developing its own little cliches or communities, and we're growing into experiences as far as like some of the things that we might have thought a year ago. We kind of have to reevaluate, and I'm saying this as far as me and 3D ourselves in particular, especially when we started doing these Twitter Spaces and what we initially came in on and like where we are now and the things that we've been learning as we've progressed in hosting these events. But again, it plays again, not again. We do a rebroadcasting because I'm still backlogged on pushing out the episodes on the Gentleman of Crypto YouTube channel that comes on 11 p.m. on Fridays. And so this is just a couple of the things that we do. As I consistently say, hashtag we are not tourists. Like we do tinker and break things, and we do try to come up with things that, at least for us as like being cyberpunkish and being about like having digital agency, we try to put things out there that like fall within that philosophy, within that goal, within that vision of how we see this open source technology. And for those who are tinkerers, for those who are cyberpunks, for those who may not be technical, but still at least like to be aware of the stuff that's going on. So that's the house cleaning on that end of things. But back to this thing about the VR chat documentary called We Met in Virtual Reality, which was done in 2021 by Joe Hunting. And I tried reaching out, like, what was that, like 3 weeks ago or something, or a month ago? I was trying to reach out. I was hoping that he would, respond and come back, or at least somebody else might be in, the circle who might come back. But unfortunately, didn't get to hear back from anybody. But I would definitely have loved, to have had somebody on who could talk about like when it was actually being put together. But nonetheless, we do think that it is a good documentary, and it shows the utility that isn't like monetarily based, but more, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for right now, 3D. As far as like, there was utility in this, but it wasn't about being a transactional relationship. It was about being or having the ability to connect and build rapport, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think a good scene to talk about is like when that one person was like, I was a mute for the entire time I was on here until, you know, this person got me to unmute myself. So something like that. A lot of people don't realize that that's a thing in these digital realms where people, what they do is they just go into places, they go on mute, or they go into chat and they lurk. It's, I think, probably the better known version of what we're talking about, lurking in a chat room. And it definitely shows that it can be used. Like, I know me growing up, I didn't have a whole lot to go with people. So there's a lot of times like with certain types of interactions that get confused as heck. I'm just like, I don't understand. And now people have a chance and an ability to learn how to do that. Like, they ahead of time, because they were probably like really anxious to see each other, they created a store, or like they went to a place where there is a airport and stores, and it's like a mock, city. And they just kind of like, what would be stuff we would want to do? And I think that's an important thing to realize, is like something that people did a long time ago was they would go on dates. And I know, like, when I was growing up, dates was more of a socialized thing of like, oh, well, you have to do this because you guys are going together. But at one point in time, it was like to figure out if you liked the person. It was to learn about them. It was basically probing to see if they would be a good, mate, right? So we're seeing people able to do this.
The courting stage, before you got to officially we're together, you would court. So you would go out and try to figure out, like you said, like, are we in sync as far as, do we take it to the next step, or are we on the same page, and then agree to take it to the next step after a couple of different outing events that would be considered the courting phase. I don't know, we don't really do that nowadays, like, or at least it's not as common practice to just court someone, as opposed to like, oh, we went out for a day and like, all right, we're official boyfriend, girlfriend, the Facebook status says so, or like whatever the new social media thing is to like show your relationship status. I have no idea what that is right now.
I hear you, but I think right now we're in a period where they do post courtshipness. So they're only doing courtship after the fact. They're a lot of people there are like getting together normally because of what, like sexual needs or whatever, and or drunkenness or something like that, right? And then they're stuck in a position where they're together, right? So then they do, okay, now we have to figure out who we are, and they might not actually go on dates, but they'll still do the courtship stuff. They'll still do the probing and all that. But yeah, you're right. It's weird to see those old practices in new times. Is that, I think, what I'm getting at?
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Like, I had a conversation earlier today with someone, and we were talking about like their kid being young and not having like the street life thing, and they very much are active in the online gaming community, and the whole thing of how like there's this virtual world, stuff, how people are, and then there's like this reality of, hey, just because someone appears this way in this virtual world does not mean that's what's going on in the real world with them. Which again, like, it's an interesting thing. Like, if you take the time, for those of you who listen to this later on, to watch this documentary, it is interesting to note how many people, and it might have been in part of like just how the editing was going, but like there is a general like, hey, everyone is pretty chill. Here and there, depending on what types of rooms you're, or areas you're moving about in this virtual realm, you will bump into like the flat out creeps or the flat out trolls, or the flat out just like awkward, weird people who are like, there's no second guessing that they might be off, or they might be on some like next level drug that is like totally throwing off their character or whatever. But everyone mostly has the story of like, yeah, I met this person was cool, I did this with that person, blah 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 blah. And it's interesting to note, right? You know how they talk about how when you have in real world interactions, part of how you understand people is through picking up on body cues. Like, a lot of communication is transferred in body language. So lifting your eyebrow, blinking, crossing your arms. If you're a person who talks with your hands, if you're a person who has a very animated face, like those things don't necessarily translate in VR, at least, for how the technology is now, to be like on par with real world body language. There's some things, but it's not 100% like on par, is my point. But I still find it interesting that because the operational environment has changed, even though we're like, these meat pod things that work in this real world, we still adapt and find ways to build rapport, to communicate, to, bond and connect and stuff with people, even when we don't see what they actually look like, if that makes sense. Because like some of the avatars I was looking at, like one person was like a hot dog with legs and like a shaggy hair. He had shaggy hair. Somebody was one of the what's the name of the gremlin? Not the bad gremlin, the good gremlin that started everything. One of the characters or the avatars was the gremlin thing. Like the idea that in this world, I do not have to have a humanoid or a exact human representation of myself, and it is okay. I can look like a dog on two legs and have like a unicorn horn, and I can be purple. And as long as I can like talk and convey my thoughts and feelings, someone else is going to pick up on it, and we're just going to build off of like actual communication. Like that's the other thing that I found really interesting about this, because some people had some really like, there was the outlandish level of avatars, and then there was some where I was just like, yo, like how did you even think of that one? Like, god damn, that's mad dope. And it went from the outlandish of the object or thing that people would make their avatars all the way over to like there's nothing eccentric or over the top. Like this person just went with the regular humanoid figure thing, regular skin tone, regular hair, whatever. And then some people went like next level of, I look like one of the demon lords in an anime, humanoid, but I got the big horns and my eyes are red, or I might be a vampire or whatever. But nonetheless, like people still connected off of being able to talk with each other. That's what I still find dope. But that's just me.
Yeah, bro. I think that's the awesome thing to see in these things, because I don't know, like we hear more and more, like more people are having mental problems, more people are having problems connecting, more places are having problems physically, or, violence and stuff, and more people want to go through a phase of almost like social disconnection, but they don't want to disconnect. And you have mentioned this thing about like there's so much stuff about people wanting to just simply find a way to communicate, and that I think might be one of like the bottom, like you could actually say that is the meaning of life right there. Find a way to communicate, because if you've ever seen like two animals from two different biomes trying to communicate with each other, it's an unusual experience. They a lot of times end up fighting because they don't know how, and humans somehow break that barrier with language, like physical and non-physical language. Because like we see them actually, like we see in here, sign language, right? They're doing sign language, learning sign language, and there are some people who are either deaf or partially deaf, and they're still mouthing and still somewhat saying stuff. We can hear them, and they're still doing sign language the whole time. And so we're at a point where we have tech that can do crazy things, but I'm sure the cost to get these people to be able to do some of the stuff is pretty high, which means that the people who we are seeing right now, they're already people who probably have, like a lot of them kept saying like they have a job or they are working, they do have financial means. And so it's like we're not seeing like everyday average Joe people, but we are seeing extraordinary situations coming together because of the technology that average day, every ordinary people can be taking advantage of. And it's like, I know like when we were building Builder DAO, there was a bunch of stuff that when we first putting it in, Trek did say something to me, and he was like, is this? And I was just like, yeah, I mean, technically, but, and then when it finally went to a point where I was like, yeah, okay, this one and this one, I think the three main ones I'm looking at, and I'm like, okay, these no longer actually meet the requirements. And it's mostly in the open source, and I think one was in the, there's no free anything. So it's like, we gave them a trial period, and nope, and not working. And at the same time, reevaluating it, it's like, I wonder what like VR chat is going to look like in 3 or 4 years. How is it going to expand, or is it going to collapse? Is it going to stay the same? Is it going to be one of those things that they find their niche, they love it, they keep it? And I think more metaverses are going to have whatever similar experience that we see somewhere between like VR chat, Vumu, the Second Life, and some of the classic like game style, like game centric metaverse stuff or metaversal setups. Where I think like this is going to be one of those major pillars. So if they can't make it in 3 to 4 years, there's a whatever, then other ones of that similar style are going to have problems. But if they prosper and they grow and they're able to keep going and they're able to build and they're able to do and they're able to keep up, then that means metaverses of that same style are going and they have a higher chance of prospering. You know, it's like there's the test right there in front of you. Let's see how it does. It has the tech everybody's wanting. 1 second, bro. They have the tech everybody's wanting. The 3D models, all the capturing, all the stuff, all the interacting, all the play fields. They have it all. So that's what we're always hearing in crypto, right? And it's there. So if these tests can work out, then those people can implement it over. All right, Russell, come on in. You had your hand up.
Okay, so considering what we saw or are seeing happen with the way that the Metaversal Toolbox, how we had to take some of the stuff off because they started putting things behind paywalls. How long do you think these virtual worlds, and when I'm saying the virtual worlds, you know, aka the metaverses and stuff, I'm more like looking at if all right, so you know how there's this whole the subscription model being pushed out in different sectors of like online products and communities. So if you look at like the consumption of the written word, right? Substack is the new thing now, but that's behind that has its own paywall kind of set up to it. Patreon, as far as like being able to be a part of a community. What's the other thing? YouTube, as far as consuming content, like if you want to be able to do a couple of extra things, you know, well, here's paid features that you can have if you pay for blah, 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 right? What was that like? I think it was like YouTube Red or something. With the metaverses, I'm curious on what the experimentation is going to look like in the metaverses. And you said something that brought me to that point about the pay subscription model being introduced. Oh, that's what it was. You were like, you mentioned like, well, what is, you know, VR chat going to look like in like 5 years and stuff like that. So like in 3 years, 5 years. So like 2025, I don't know why that seems to be like the middle number for me of where I think a lot of stuff that we have experienced in the space, you know, in this last 2 year period, plus the things that we were in and messing with like before 2017 and stuff, I think is going to look like a whole different animal come 2025. And in part, I think some of it has to do with companies that are in this metaversal VR space are going to look to try not new types of revenue models, but they're going to look to put revenue models in their platform, in their program, in their whatever environment thing that wasn't there before. And so the older heads, like imagine they put some kind of revenue model inside VR chat. How many people are still going to be there? You know what I'm saying? Like that's part of the, how is this going to look X number of years down the road?
Hey, bro, I got a thought point, I guess. What if it gets popular enough to where, like, OGs, originals, people who are in right now with the cost factor and stuff to get in and stuff, and something happens and it makes it easier for more people to get in type of thing, right? What if they want that paywall? Like in the crypto space, we see that often where a sector or a section in the crypto space will become so saturated with wealth through growth of the, you know, what coin or whatever market, you know, NFTs, things like that, that a lot of these people who make it from that growth then do want to put in paywall systems to block people who haven't but may be capable of similar whatever, like in fact of like new artists coming into the NFT scene or new traders coming in onto the you know, trading scene and stuff like that. And so it's like, you know, even like content creators, we've seen people beef with you know, YouTubers with YouTubers and stuff like that in the crypto space, for example, just in the crypto space. Look at the whole CoffeeZilla Jake Paul thing, right? And I think that like, oh, it's just like, I think that paywall thing might actually be more of a good, that's a type of thing. And I think with the way everything is right now, places are, it's not like afraid of, they're less afraid of the consequences of trying things they wouldn't have tried before. They might go a little bit outrageous in some cases and stuff, but they're less worried about what might happen afterwards. Like 30 years ago, if a company said, we're going to charge you a percentage of money for you saying the word fuck or something, right? Say, for example, they only did it if you were on TV, though. People actually outraged when they said they were going to do it for people who did it on live TV, and they freaked out. PayPal says it. Everybody freaked out. PayPal went, oh, no, it's not real, bro. This was a draft. And then 3 months later, they do it. And people are just like, okay, cool. Because, again, like the way everything is now, there's so many people, there's so many biomes, there's so many niches, there's so many growth possibilities. I think that style of monetization for that thing is going to be more relevant, where we have a free option with a paywall for more, or straight up a paywall just to get in. It's like, if you remember the internet when it was young, just going onto a place where you could talk with someone else in any manner, even before like IRC was a big thing, that was huge. And there'd be so few people there, but it would feel like the world at your fingertips. And there might be 6 people there total. You know, maybe out of like the entire server, 130 if you're lucky. And then IRC made like not Apple, AOL chat, Yahoo chat, MSN chat. It made all these things super relevant. And I remember, I think it was AOL chat. I was on it when it first came out, like when it first, I think, became popular, not when it first became popular. And you could see from like when it first was there, you'd go into a chat room, there might be 36 people. And then one day, I think I came home from school and I got on, there were hundreds of people in all the chat boards. And then it was like, well, how do you get in? There, like there's a cap on some of these chat, on all of them. There'd be a cap. And so they'd all be full. And then it was like, how do we make a chat board? And so I'm hoping that if we do see like VR chat and metaverses of that style or whatever, or in general, any of the metaverses have some kind of problem, I hope that it causes some kind of resolution. People having problem in their physical life, they're using VR chat to have resolution. They're using the metaverse space for resolution. People in there's that lady, she said she gets migraines from too much noise. So I'm sure she has a thing where she can set how much noise she can get out of her VR chat at any point in time. She can reduce what she hears to help her with her physical problem. We got people in there deaf, talking with people who are not deaf, probably a situation they never get into in real life. Like I had to learn a lot of sign language for scouts and some other stuff. And I had worked with a guy at Whataburger and Brahms. They were deaf, and that helped a lot, but it was just like over the years, I suck at it. So that'd be something I could totally do. And with VR chat, like I probably wouldn't do that in real life, just out of like, I can't do that kind of stuff, but VR chat would make that more possible. I already got the model, I got the tech, like that stuff already there. I would need like a hand thing or whatever to do the expressions, right? But it's just weird. Like this is a solution for so much. This is a nuisance though for so much. Just wait until these people try to go log in and they got to start putting password locks on their server for their VR chat because they can't host their workout or their dance class or whatever because they got overflowed because it was a busy day that day and people just overflowed in because all the other chat boards were full, or the ones they won were full, and that was the next one they found. And so a lot of possibility, a lot of great, a lot of scariness, but I think this movie, like just the way they record it, they let the work speaks for itself type thing. I think that's what makes it worth it, because I'm like me, I got caught up in it probably 2 different times. I really got caught up in it, like where I stopped what I was doing and I don't even think I was watching the stream, I was just listening, and it was just like, okay, that makes sense. And they highlighted good reasons for this type of deck. They highlighted why metaversal spaces are really useful, really good. And I think if something like this had not have happened, there'd be a lot of like high-powered people thinking that metaversal spaces was a complete and total scam, right? And this really helps concrete that these are not scams. Sure, they may exist. Sure, a lot of these may not be worth it, but definitely not a scam. What's up, bro?
All right. When you say that this has happened, are we saying the documentary capturing the evidence of? Are we saying that the community's doing their natural, or people doing their natural thing of connecting and socializing, like that happening? Because like, think about how many things online, and I literally was making this point to somebody the other day, like how many things online as far as like communities that exist that you're just not aware of because that's just not where you are, right? So like for people who may have heard of metaverses or have heard of virtual reality, they never heard of the specific VR chats, and they may have never heard of like the different types of meetup groups that use VR chat now to connect and engage with their community members. And like again, case in point of, there was the one group that the lady was teaching people sign language. If you're somebody like who knows sign language is a thing, but it just might never dawn on you, like, wait, somebody's actually doing that in a virtual reality? Like, how? Then it starts making you ask questions. Hopefully it gets you to ask questions, and even more hopefully it gets you to try to figure out, well, how do you become involved in that if you're somebody who wants to learn it, or if you're somebody who wants to participate in virtual worlds, but like you might have the problem of where you're deaf or you can't speak, and that is how you communicate, but you thought this whole time like you were left out. Lo and behold, the community was there. It just might not have been on your radar. And I think like that's another part of this whole like mass adoption thing, where we give like so much like high praise to the thing that like majority of the people are doing. But then there's this other part of where, even though the majority of people might not like something, because it works towards the monetization model well, it'll still be pushed as, oh, well, this is what everyone's doing, or this is like the common best place, or the best practice, or the better way to do whatever the thing is. And then, like, I don't know, I feel like when we're more like how we are about being in the DGen side, the cypherpunk side, like on the outskirt kind of things, it's cool or okay to be aware of the mainstream stuff, but it doesn't mean that like you'll have maybe as much interest or fun or connection in the mainstream stuff the way that you might have it in like the things that aren't necessarily as popular, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that does make sense. And I did mean the movie.
Okay.
But yeah, that does make sense. I did mean the movie, because definitely there were tons of things that happened already up to this point, just like in the, since we really had the open internet in 96, has really had, even we could call any form of digital communication layer for the common person, with the bringing of like Outlook and AOL, and IRC. Like so much has happened from then to now that, like less than 4 decades, right? Like it's like what is next is going to be huge, because like right now a lot of people are like, for example, the virtual reality one, that's going to make it. Then you got people that are like, no, it's going to be more like avatar, like 3D objects but on a flat plane, and if you just want to use like a different peripheral to interact with it, you can. And then other people are like, well, it's going to be the chip in the head or whatever, and then you can still say it's peripheral, but there's all these different outlooks of like what is going to happen with this space, and it's like, does it even matter, or is it still just going to prosper into the same direction until something happens that people just either don't need it or have gone past it? Like, you think chat rooms are dead? No, chat rooms are huge. Technically, what we're watching these people do is a chat room. It's just an audio chat. Look at Discord, look at Telegram, look at Twitter, look at Facebook. Twitter and Facebook, perfect example. BBs, Telegram and Discord, perfect examples of chat rooms. Like, the tech might not be exactly the same, the names might not be the same, but I definitely see it's still going to be here. I'm just wondering, like, how this is going to affect things, because if we talk about what stuff can be capable from this, because now, keep in mind, this was an HBO film. Like, when I opened up and it said HBO in there, I was like, oh shit. That means that there's potentially higher profile people that could see it, and just because it's HBO, and it's done in a manner to where there's like no real sexual nudities or anything like that, but they do have like in the windows, that's what scenes and stuff, but it's done in a tasteful manner to the aspect of what's actually going on, what they're talking about. And to be honest, like Trek said earlier, it's like we're just really watching these people as a lurker. We're just basically lurking. And this is when we talk about brain dances, memorances, daydreams. That's what these are. That like this movie that we just watched is an edited brain dance. And I guarantee you, if you have the app on your phone or you have the goggles or whatever, there's an app that takes video to VR video, and you could damn near experience this as if you're the person. And then if it was recorded with tech that would have handled like there's tech that they have, so like you can like do scenes where you're touching objects and it record a strength. Like there's I think it's for pole dancing, and I believe for learning how to pole dance online. But it's a pole and it's got different sensors on it, and depending on how hard you grip it and how fast you move it's basically like watching what you're doing based on your hand movements, right? So tech like that can be used in other manners, like when they're giving people lap dances, they could be using these poles to record the information. So if someone's wearing a haptic suit or something in the future, it could have been played. And there are things that could be microtransactions inside here that we're not even considering. These people are working in VR chat as lap dancers or singers or artists. And like they're sitting there and they're telling people, they're like, giving them rules, telling them cues, telling them links, what to remember. If you see someone that, freaks you out, let us know. We're watching stuff, but stuff is still possible. They point out the different moderators, and even had a point where they forgot someone's name and they called them by a reference to their character model, something that we do in real life where you call a guy in the hat, bro, and everyone got on, bro, you don't remember their name. So it's like in these spaces where what interactions are actually exchanged, the more minor details matter, and that could always become a problem. But it's used right now, I think, in a place in a way where it's a net positive. It really is. They're using it for fun. They're using it for different things, and I don't know. I think because like everything that we've heard about metaverses, I think the biggest thing I've heard is that scam, right? So many big places are saying we don't want to be connected with it, and this 100%, 180 changes that perspective, and it doesn't just change it; it shows you why, and it shows us some real utilities metaverses have in our future. Like your future psychological doctor might actually just be an AI and a chatbot working together in a virtual reality environment while you sit with a thing on your face, a thing over your head and your ears, these mitten things on. So you basically, they put you in a temperature controlled, pressure fed, stuff, like mittens and feet things. And you might be thinking, okay, I'm about to get a massage. And then in the end, you are doing something like this. Like you're actually having a conversation with someone, and when they tell you to do stuff like rub your fingers together or do the grounding techniques, or you're going to start doing those. And you're going to be moving them around, and the game's going to see that you are. And if you're not, it's going to know. And it's going to be able to do things that, like, they're going to be crazy sounding. But at the same time, though, like, what if we didn't need people to go to school for mental stuff, mental problems, unless they wanted to? There's a chance that this technology, like, if we look at if more of the utilities get used for what they could be used for, we could have things where, like, people are going to work to places because they really want to, not because they have to, because they want to. And sure, money still might be a problem and all this other stuff, but it's like what jobs are needed are lessened. And so we won't see people spending tons of money to go to school to be a psychiatrist if they know there might be only 7 hires in a year for psychiatrists in the country. The chances of winning are lower, right? So then the people who are going to go, they're going to be more motivated, higher skilled, better stuff. Like, we have a higher potential of more better outcomes. But at the same time, it's going to cost different things. Like, I could not sit in one of these things for 4 hours doing stuff like this. I couldn't do it. Imagine your life around you. Like, where is it going to be? It's going to be so complicated. And for some people, this is going to be like, if most of their life is inside one of these things, it's going to be extremely insane in their future. But that's still for us to figure out what's going on, I guess.
So yeah. So how do I want to say this? I think to your point that this movie shows like the first tier of here's how this virtual world stuff can work. And as far as like the first tier of just like virtually interacting and building rapport with people, I think, but that's like using stationary systems, right? We're not necessarily having more mobile stuff, even though we like with the avatars, there are camera software that helps with motion, right? But for the most part, people are sitting in front of like some kind of laptop or terminal. It's not like you have some kind of headset that you just pop on and take with you wherever you're going, and then you jump into whatever metaverse VR space that you're in. Um, but or like the AR side of it, where like if you're doing it on the phone and your phone, like the person has some kind of transmitter on them, whether it be NFC or what is it, NRF? I'm sorry, RFID, or something that when you look at them through your phone camera, it projects their avatar that way. Like we're not exactly there yet in the fullest like ease of use of those things, but it definitely, I would say, at least for how I'm looking at it, like we're not that far off from that. We're going to be there. Things are going to, progress to where it's going to be more mobile, smaller devices, and we're going to jump into things like a VR chat. We're going to have avatars that, oh, that was the other thing that I was thinking about. Why it made me question about the whole paywall idea or some kind of monetization thing because of IP and copyright law, especially within the American and Western markets. As I was saying before, it was a number of characters that I saw that were like from some kind of cartoon, some kind of movie, some kind of animation. And so that was the other thing that I was wondering, like, now that more of the big brands and stuff are aware of like there is a growing user base and community in these virtual worlds, and yes, we have them as consumers of our product, in other segments, but we have this other segment over here where we could possibly get them to not get them, but where we can extract value out of them in this other segment area that they're in. Like I was thinking about this the other day for something else. I forgot what it was. But one of the things I think about with how NFTs are going to end up moving in the whole, virtual space, as far as like the NFT being connected to the item or whatever the digital or the real world representation is, big brands, whether they be fintech companies, IP companies, like entertainment or whatever, sports, all of it, they're going to look for other ways to extract value out of these virtual spaces, because the users that they have in their traditional environments of who goes to a sports game, who buys the LeBron sneakers, now it's like, well, we need to find the other areas that these people are in to be able to extract value. And when I say extract value, I mean as in, let's find more ways to get money out of their pocket. Now, granted, some folks will argue this is about expanding the user experience to be more Web3 friendly and like more engaging and encompassing. And in my mind, I'm just like, that's total bullshit. What you're saying is you want to find other ways to take money out of people's pockets. That's it. Because if it wasn't about making the money, you would not suggest these ideas. That's just a little bit of a side ramble on how I look at some of the stuff that I see out here now for projects, whether they be big brand like NBA Top Shots, as well as even what like Disney's been doing, and even the no-name startup, projects that are just like totally crypto related and are just like, oh, well, we have this new NFT or DAO thing, whatever. And I know it sounds like I'm talking shit, even though we have a DAO, but we don't, me and 3D in regards to the Build a DAO thing, we're not pushing like how I see some of these other folks pushing shit. Like, it's not, hey, let's go make a buttload of money off of people, or let's like try to find ways to get money out of people. That's not what's going on. But that's probably a whole nother side conversation. Nonetheless, the documentary movie, We Met in Virtual Reality, came out in 2021. It was done by a guy named Joe Hunting, and he basically did a virtual or a video capture of him interacting and, really doing a very like laid back interview style of people in the AR chat world, VR chat communities, and like people were just really expressing themselves. And I think it was definitely a well done thing, and I'm glad somebody thought to capture the community and this type of interaction, and how the technologies combined together show that, like, human nature wise, we are about communication, we are about building rapport, we are about connecting with people. And for the timeline that it came out in, which was 2021, like I don't know how you would not know what happened, but it just goes to show that even in those kind of I'm gonna use the word dire times, people still find ways to connect and interact and build. And as a number of people in that documentary did say, like, finding VR chat, finding these communities, it definitely saved them. And I mean, I'm going to say that's like a good thing across the board. It would be interesting to see if he did a follow-up of this. Like, what would it, like, follow up, 3 years down the road, 2025 or 2027 or whatever, like, where are the communities? Where are some of the people who were in it? What's going on with them in life? How has things gone? And I know his thing wasn't about the technical side of it, but it would also be interesting to see, like, what is the progression of VR chat? How has it evolved over the number of years within the features, as well as like just the technology behind the avatars, being able to create them and being able to show the motion and stuff like that. Honestly, like there's a number of other things, thoughts of questions I have about that. But if you are interested, if you're listening to this later on, I'm not saying it's like super dialogue, but if you're interested in virtual reality, community building, metaverses, this thing of understanding how the interactions kind of work in this space, like, I think that it is a very good documentary and worth watching. That's my thought on it. And I hope that in the coming months and years, like, we see more of these types of things, whether they be a series or whether they be another movie thing or a documentary, just to show, like, as we do capture how many other types of documentaries related to various other topics, like, I don't know, I would like to see this part of VR documentaries or whatever, or movies, like, explored more. I don't know who else is going to do it. I don't even know what another topic would be, but I think it would be interesting to have other things like this. And thank you for jumping in, Danish Crypto. Thanks for jumping in. Are you familiar by any chance with the documentary movie that we're talking about, We Met a Virtual Reality? I did just try to send a speak thing. Okay, I did.
I guess while we're waiting for him to connect, or if I can't hear him, someone.
That was my fault, yo. I hit the thing button and didn't realize it. So housekeeping again on the end of this is the Build a DAO Twitter account, and this is a Twitter Spaces that we host called Metaverses the Other Side. Me and 3D, we put this together during the summertime, and it has been a hell of an interesting journey as far as us geeking out about metaverses and the different types that there are, and like the different things you can do to kind of learn and experience and tinker and break the tech on how to create metaverses or things within metaverses, such as NFTs or faucets and a number of other things. So, like, we put together a website called Metaversal Toolbox, which is hosted on IPFS, and we are encouraging people who are believers in decentralized, data storage, digital access to resources and information. If you are a part of the IPFS node network, or if you have some other kind of other digital decentralized data storage platform that you use, we highly encourage folks to add our site to their node, so that this information can be out there and other people can have access to it. Because what we try to do was find projects that were open source and free. We are going through and updating the list because some projects have pulled their stuff behind paywalls. But again, like, this is about being able to have that open access to open source tools, basically, to be able to build different things within metaverses, smart contracts, NFTs, other kind of art things, as well as being able to put together or spin up really simplistic virtual reality spaces. The other thing that we do too is we have the Builder DAO plot, which is in the Uplift Metaverse. We also designed and built the Spore Baby plot. I believe we have the location in the description for the Builder DAO account. Then the other thing to note is that we have these recordings that we play on the Gentlemen of Crypto Network YouTube channel, which comes out at Friday at 11 p.m. And so throw that out there for the folks who are interested in kind of seeing what the visual stuff looks like, because what I've been trying to do is combine some AI generated art stuff, exploring other different metaverses, showing some of the process for how we built the Spore Baby plot, showing some of the process for how we built the Builder DAO Tower, and some of the other things that we're working on. And so the idea, like I said, we don't do price talk. We do the geek out talk stuff. Hashtag we're not tourists. We do actually break and tinker with this stuff. And that's like basically what we're about right now. Not saying, and we know that this is not a for everybody channel because we especially don't do price talk stuff. But for those who are tinkerers, those who are people who are interested in learning about no code, low code solutions, hey, that's like kind of who we're targeting. And hopefully we can inspire some people. We can get some people to ask more questions, and we can get folks to reach out and, build some rapport, and hopefully come up with some new creative things and at least learn some stuff together. And so I'm gonna stop my ramble right there. 3D, if you want to jump in. Hey, Bobcat, you want to say anything?
Hey, Russell. I think you're pretty much on point there. Something I like to say is when you're outside looking in, it always looks more chaotic than when you're inside looking out. And I think this film, if I was to give it a scale from 1 to 0, like we did on those previous ones, I would say it does that. It does a pretty good job as if it's the inside looking in from the outside point of view. I think that's the best part about this, a little bit of the self-inception or fourth wall break on your own self. But it's kind of cool to see that. Now I would like to see stuff like Minecraft, modders, people in Discord hoppers. They could go on and do stuff about, bad things, good things, positive, negative, like diseases, situations, people recovering, like, and it could become like a new limelight of let the people speak. I would love to see something like this being done with the audio chats that happen in Discord or Telegram or something, or the Zoom calls that people have. Like what kind of hidden lives are in these metaversal spaces that we might not know about. And that's why I kind of want to end off on. I loved the film. It was way better than I was actually expecting, although I was kind of expecting some high ground in the start. If the director of this seems, if they want to have more ideals for stuff, I think that they was to just get in touch with the Builder DAO Twitter account or track with 2Ks through DM or something, or even a tag on Twitter. I think we could set up where they come in and we all talk to them. We try to get them to come in, say hi, because the community tends to have some of the best ideals. As we see in here, the communities had, like that one lady, she was like, "You changed my eyes? You changed it, like changed stuff on her character model for her outfit just because she was like, no, this is gonna look better." It's for that moment, a picture, and it makes it. That's what makes stuff special, like extra special at least. I don't know. All right, Russ. So, anybody else coming in? I don't think Twitter is being super happy with us at the moment. I've sent stuff out, but nothing came back. Is there anything else you want to add in or anything?
No, man, that's all I got. Hats off to, Joe Hunting and the folks that were in the docu-movie We Met in Virtual Reality. I hope that it follows up with something else along this line. That's all I got.
Yeah, I would love to see more from it.
Oh, all right, folks. So Danish Crypto, thanks for, I guess, listening in. Bobcat, I know you usually do that where you just be like multitasking and do the listen thing. We appreciate. And yeah, so I guess I'll check you out later, bro. And we will talk.